and call the meeting to order. Get a roll call, please.
Mr. Greenwood,
Here.
Mr. Hodges,
Here.
Mr. Garber,
Here.
Mr. Moran,
Here.
Chairman Spelke.
Here. We have an amended agenda in front of us, gentlemen. If there are no further changes, I'll entertain a motion to adopt. Any discussion? Ms. Branch.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Moran,
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood, Chairman Spelke.
Aye. And into the matters of the evening, we start with the general reassessment update with Mr. Pearson.
Thank you very much. Wish everybody Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Very good.
Thank you. Yeah, we have loaded all the real estate data. We loaded the 2015 data onto our tablets. We have two appraisers working on site, knocking on doors, leaving door hangers, taking pictures, main dwelling, outbuildings. We've done 2,200 parcels, about 18% of the county in the field. Miranda's working in the office. Let's see. I met with Kingwood County Tea Party. They requested I come and talk with them. I did. Extremely nice people. They told me some things that I didn't know about the last reassessment. They informed me that in the last reassessment, quality grades and effective age was used to increase property value. I told them I was not using any of their files or any of the work that they have, that we're using the 2015 reassessment file. And I told them I'd be glad to go back and meet with them, keep them updated as we go along. Any other group or organization that'd like me to come and talk with them, I'll be happy to do so. And when I start doing the sales study and get into the sales, anything on values, the sales that we've had to talk to people about in general, I will not be interested in talking about individual properties at this time. But if anybody has any information that may affect their property and would like me to know, they can let me know. I'll be glad to discuss that with them. Let's see. Vision software, we have been verifying some data, both in January and February to get in and get it calculated properly. I want to get it calculating close to what the right system did. So we're working on getting that done. Hopefully, when we look at property increases, it'll be more consistent. If we do it that way, we can get it calculated pretty close to what it was, unless the property's been changed in some way or another. The percent increase may be a lot more consistent. Let's see. We do have, we've been notified by the bonding company that Kingwood County bond has been approved. And as soon as we receive that, we're going to get that to the county. I just appreciate everybody's cooperation, everybody with the county. It's been extremely helpful to us. People out in the field have been nice and courteous. Just think everything is going extremely well. It probably will be until the noses go out. The market is still going up. I haven't done a study in King William County. We're also doing Westmoreland County. And the average price of a home increased in 2021, 18% in Westmoreland County.
Well, what previous assessment year?
That's from 2020 to 2021. 18% in 1 year.
So is Westmoreland doing theirs every 2 years?
Yeah, there's 6 years.
Every 6 years. Well, you mentioned the software.
Yes,
Do you foresee any problems?
not at this time. I do not.
Okay.
I don't, it's going to take time to work with it to get it calculated the way we want it to calculate. Once we do that, we'll be in pretty good shape. We're going to use a lot of the same process that was done last time, not last time, but then with Bright software.
What do your field folks do when they have a resident that is concerned about there are no trespassing signs and here you are standing in front of the door? How do you handle that?
We try to be careful with the trespassing sign. If we go there, we just try to be cautious. If it says you will be shot, we will not go on the property. A lot of times we will ride in, we shoot a picture, if somebody's there, we get out and talk to them. But it's a situation, you gotta be careful. When it's got no trespassing, to me, it means no trespassing. But we still get pictures, of outbuildings, unless they come out and ask us to leave. If they do, we leave. Anytime a property owner does not want us on his property, and they let us know in advance, we won't go. But we do. We had one lady called in, and she said that I'm not going to let this man in my house. We explained to her we do not go inside of any homes. We knock on the door, we tell them who we are. We may ask them a few questions about the interior of the home, but we do not ask to go in any house. I told my people not to go in any homes. We do walk around homes, we do make measurements, we do take pictures. And she was talking and she says, well, I didn't know that. I said, I think I said something to the appraiser that wasn't very nice, and that I apologize for doing that. So anyway, everything's nice. Everybody's good. There's some people that they don't understand what you're doing, and some people may have a problem. If they ask us to leave, we leave. But we do try to go and inspect the property, and do try to take a lot of pictures and make sure the measurements are correct, things like that. But we try not to upset anybody when we go there.
On the 2,200 properties that you've done, do you have an idea of what percentage increase those were?
Oh, no, we're not looking at really doing appraisal work right now. We're making sure the physical data is correct.
Okay, what is there? What is there in photo?
We're doing photos and we're checking information on the property. We'll make sure all additions are picked up. We're making notes as far as condition goes on the house. You know, anything, if we see some things that's been done to the house, if it's got new windows and doors in, they make notes on parts, on things like that. Maybe it's got a new heat pump there. But that's what they're doing now. We're going to get into the sales a little bit later on, probably during February, March of this coming year. And at that time, the sales that we have, I have no problems making available to the public in general. If anybody has any, I can tell them how I'm going to use those sales. And I talk to them about properties in general. This is before the notices go out. I'm looking for any input. Anybody can help me do my job better. I want that information.
But because it's been so long, the public should be expecting some kind of increase in value, right?
Sure, it's going to be at least 60%. It's going to be a large increase.
Mr. President, I was just wondering, you said the ones that have, they're adamant about not getting on their property. How do you do an assessment for them if you just can't ever see any of the stuff that might be
Well,
there?
it's very rarely that people ask us not to come on their property. You might have one out of 200 people. And yes, and then if they ask us not to, we won't. If we're taking pictures and they say, we don't want you to take pictures, we'll delete them. We try to do our work in a way we don't upset anybody, but very rarely are people not nice to us when we go out there. Most people are very nice.
Like you
So
said,
they understand what we're doing, but there's some people who don't understand.
but what happens
We just do the best we can.
like I said, if there are 1 in 200, there's how many parcels total?
You got about 12,000 parcels.
So that's a lot over the 1,200, but then you just guess at what they have or take an aerial.
We've got information from last time.
That might not be right.
I'm talking from 2015, and it could have changed, but we'll use that information, just do the best we can. And we always try to give everybody a fair and equitable assessment.
So we talked about notices. We talked about the type of value increases that we're expecting to see. I think as we move forward, and obviously we're working on impaneling an advisory committee right now, plus we'll work on some of these issues. But I think as we move toward finalizing values and sending out notices, it would be helpful if either the advisory committee or the board itself were able to communicate along with those notices, what our intent is with tax rates and everything at that time, because I think that caused a lot of consternation and concern last time. Was just, there was no explanation. It was just a fact sheet that said your assessment is increased 30%. Most people automatically assume that meant a 30% tax increase. Well, that was not ever the intent of this board. This board said at the time, and unless somebody's drastically changed their mind, I think would say again that our intent is not to exceed within that 1% range when we set rates when this is done. So some ability to communicate in concert with, and my desire would be, if it's allowable and possible, literally in the same envelope with those notices and explainer as to what the intent of the board is to do with these values.
I think all that's good, and I think as much as advanced information we can give them, even before the notices go out.
Right.
Would be better.
I agree.
We just want good communication. I want them, I'd like them to know basically what I'm doing. I want them to know what to expect and how I'm doing it. And I'm not talking about individual properties, but maybe properties in general. And home sites, land, how land's being treated. And I'd like to get ideas so that they don't come after the notices out and say, well, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. But we may not agree. And if I got something that's wrong and they can show me I'm wrong, I'm going to change it. I'm going to get it right. But anyway, that's the way I see a reassessment. I have nothing to hide. And anything dealing with sales, anybody wants to see and how they use their sales, I'd be glad to show them.
Anybody have any other comments or questions for Mr. Pierce?
One last one, Mr. Pearson, like you said, comparable sales. I guess this is a strange situation, because like you said, back this part has been done so long ago, but now it's like the exact opposite. Houses are selling for way more than what they're worth. My neighbor's house just went for 400,000, because they jacked it up, but they got 5 people that overbid the last one. The house is only worth 200,000. So what happens then? They paid 400, it's worth 200.
Good luck.
So homes are
I mean, but
selling.
that's gonna mess up everybody else's values in that neighborhood.
We're going to take 2022 sales. We might be able to use 21s, I'm not sure. We're going to use mostly 2022 sales. Most counties that I'm working in now, I can't use 2021 sales.
Right.
They're outdated.
Yeah.
The market has gone up so fast from 2021 to 2022. I can't use them. When the state does its ratio for King William County, they're going to use sales from November, December of 2022 and January and February of 2023 to come up with your ratio.
Okay.
They're not going to use any sales for 2021 and use most of the latter year sales for 2022.
Okay. Thank you.
The reassessment has to be within a percentage of that ratio, correct?
Yes,
And what is that number? 90?
they say 100%. I think anything above about 95, 96% is acceptable. A lot of times when you get these real large increases, I try to be a little bit conservative. Because when it goes up real fast, it can also come down real fast too. Luckily, properties have gone up quite a bit in 21. They've gone up a tremendous amount in 20, and it's gone up quite a bit in 21. We'll see what happens in 22.
But the values had actually gone up prior to all that, correct?
Yes,
And
Yes.
we hadn't gone up.
that's correct. You're looking at, kind of an overall, from what I can see now, I don't know what's going to happen in 22, a good 50, 60% increase. And that's in assessed values.
be another fun one. But,
It's just, the main thing is being, you do it, you try to be consistent in what you do, and, when the assessed values go up, the tax rate's gonna have to come back down. That's gonna be your job, to take care of that. I deal with assessments, you deal with the tax rate.
well, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Certainly, and we appreciate the updates. And like I said, we're going to get that body ready to work with you to
Right.
make sure that this thing is on rails and everybody has a
We want
Good
to all,
time.
we'll all work together. If you have a committee, that's great. We want to keep the property owners informed of what's going on, and we all want to work together as a team to get this done.
And I appreciate the attitude, I guess you're projecting, that I'm seeing, where it wasn't quite the same with the mayor.
Well, I've done this for 35 years. I own a lot of property myself. And I just want to make sure everybody's treated fairly. That's all I can do. Have a nice evening. Hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much.
personal property tax increase explanation.
Good evening, gentlemen. I prepared a memo that y'all have in front of you. We got it done late today. I know people have called my office, why is my personal property tax bill going up so much? Why is the PPTR rate higher in this locality than our locality? And, people are upset because the personal property tax bills have increased. When normally, the normal situation is for them to decrease. So the Personal Property Tax Relief Act was amended in 2005 and capped the amount, and when it was amended, it capped the amount of state reimbursed localities for personal property tax relief at $950 million. The amount allocated to each locality was based on the locality's personal property tax collections in 2005. Not the tax collect, a tax assessed, the amount collected as a percentage of all the personal property tax collected. Okay. The amount received by King William County was set at $1.2 million. This amount has not changed. As the tax base grows, the 1.2 million must be proportioned over a larger base, and the PPTRA rate decreases. In 2020, the value of motorcycles, cars, trucks, and vans was 138 million. In 2021, the amount was 158 million. Only motorcycles, cars, trucks, and vans are eligible for PPTRA, but not all of them are eligible. If they're used for business, they're not eligible. If the truck is too heavy, it's not eligible. The county plate, the King William County uses 100% of the PPTRA to reduce any vehicle that's assessed at $1,000 or less. So a vehicle in King William County that is assessed at $1,000 does not receive a personal property tax bill. In King and Queen County, if you receive your car is assessed at $800, you're getting a bill. So when you compare the PPTR rate between localities, that's one thing that can make a difference if they do that or not. And by law, the PPTR rate must match the amount received from the state. The locality cannot offset increases in tax revenue by adding money to the PPTR rate. In 2021, the rate was 27.7%. In 2020, it was 30%, but the county voted to increase the rate to make it 35%. The same rate it was in 2017, 18, and 19. And this was probably I imagine, because of COVID, they didn't want to give citizens relief. In 2015, 16, it was 40%. The latest figure I have was in 2007, it was 43%. So every year, over the years, it has gone down. The tax rate is set by the county during the budget process in the spring. The This year is 365 per hundred, the same as it was last year. My office assesses vehicles at the average trade-in value, as published by J.D. Powers, NADA, used car guide. If the vehicle is not in that guide, then we'll assess it at 80% of the cost. Okay, any commissioner can decide to assess vehicles at retail value, trade-in value, or loan value, as long as they assess all vehicles in that way. Trade-in retail value is the highest, would be the highest assessment value. Trade-in value is about 86% of the retail value, and loan value is about 77% of the retail value. So when you're looking at PTRA rates, you have to know how that locality is assessing their vehicles. If they're assessing their vehicles at a loan rate, they'll have a higher PTRA because the values are lower. So typically, a vehicle's assessment decreases each year. For the first time since 2007, when the federal government offered the Cash for Clunkers program, assessment values for used vehicles increased. So then the average increase is between 10 and 20%. This is a result of market conditions affecting supply and demand. In the spring of 2020, many auto manufacturers were closed. When they were reopened, they couldn't get the chips. And right now, on used dealer car lots, there's 1 million cars. And normal inventory is like 3 million cars. So there's a lot less supply. The price for new cars is up. People aren't trading in their used car because they can't afford the new car that they want. People with leasing cars didn't trade in their cars because they didn't drive anywhere in 2020. So there's less supply in the used car market, and those prices have gone up also. Okay, so the relief rate is only calculated on the vehicles that are eligible for the PPTRA. So heavy trucks, business vehicles are not. So the Board of Supervisors approves the rates before the bills are calculated and mailed. So I know people call me up and say Hanover's rate is 43%. I'm like, well, so when I was at my training last week, I talked with the commissioner on me for Hanover County. And in Hanover, they knew that the amount was going to be set based on 2005 collections. Their collection rate in 2005 was 98.5%. And they received $15 million. That's 15 times more than we get in Kingwood. So, yeah, they have a lot more money to spread about. So when comparing Kingwood's PPTRA to other localities, you have to consider that county's collection rate in 2005, how much money they're receiving, their method of assessment, and whether or not the county issued bills for vehicles based on values less than $1,000. Unfortunately, for the King William citizens, they experienced a 7% decrease in the PPTRA rate from 20 to 21, and they have higher assessment values, so they had a double whammy.
So we left that rate at 35% in 2020 because, can you believe it? We were being told by, not the commissioner or anything in particular, but by the big heads to tell us how to think about these things, that values across the board were going to go down.
Yeah.
So we felt pretty confident
So
leaving.
that's why.
Right. They said, well, COVID's going to crash all the markets. No one's going to buy any cars because
Okay.
no one's driving anywhere, and the car market's going to flatline, so you're not going to get any money for cars. And so that's, in addition to your history lesson on that was our thinking in 2020, was that all of these markets were going to crash because no one was driving. Everyone was working on things. But we've talked about this, before, and how this rate's applied and how, our allocation works. What would I be interested in doing, and I'm just speaking for myself here, is when we get around to looking at rates next year, I really want to examine what type of revenue we're realizing this year and look at the possibility of offsetting that if we expect that trend in value to stabilize or continue in any way. When we look at what we want to set rates at for next
I think about this job all the time. And I talked a little about this with Mr. Ashcroft and Mr. Hutchins this afternoon. I've already received some bulletins from JD Power that they, November was like the 5th month in a row that used car prices have increased. They're expecting, so the values they use will be set January 1st, 2022. And that's how the cars will be assessed for 2022. So it's less than a month away. And they are estimating that it's going to be a 20% increase. Last year, they said 10%. When I did my revenue projections to the board, and in February, March last year, all the information I received said 10%, 10%. So I was conservative. I estimated 9%. The actual increase in assessments was 12%. So what I was thinking, I know the board has mentioned to me they want to prorate. And before I could advise the board whether or not to do that, if it's a good idea, we would need to know how much money is actually involved. So between 60 and 100 cars in and out of town every month. There's 75 localities in Virginia that do not prorate. And mostly they're the smaller localities because it doesn't make economic sense. It takes people to work prorate. Hanover County has 6 people who just work on proration. They have between 350 and 400 cars every week in and out of the county. But prorating generates some $4 million, so it's well worth it. So Suzanne Hayden in my office, who's amazing. In January, I'm going to have her start keeping records of the numbers of in and outs and the values. Just approximately can't get it. And see how much money it is to see, is it worth paying someone with benefits and how much that costs to prorate. But until you have that information, I don't know how you're going to make a decision on that. But in that vein, if you want to prorate, the work of prorating vehicle license fees is a lot too. I mean, we do more abatements and supplements to the vehicle license fee than any other abatement or supplement. And it only brings in $400,000 in revenue. If assessment values are going to increase 10%, why don't we take some of that and just get rid of the vehicle license fee? That's very regressive. You have a car that's worth $1,000, you're paying the same $40 as the person with the $70,000 escrow. So that is something, I would like the board to consider.
That's a worthwhile thought.
Yeah.
But that's the type of data we need to
Yeah.
get that type of decision. So now I think that's great.
And so I'm thinking
Actually
about
have an informed discussion about
Yeah.
what to do with that.
And our rate was set on the amount collected, correct? Is that what you said?
the amount we received, the $1.2 million, is based on the actual amount collected in 2005.
Okay.
I
Do
don't
you
know what
happen
that
to
collection
know?
rate is. I don't know what the collection rate for personal
Okay,
property
that
tax
was
rate was
gonna be
last
my
year.
que- That was gonna be my question.
We're only, this whole discussion is only about the first $20,000 of
Yes.
assessed value.
Mhm.
My question is, how long has the rate in 365 per 100?
We haven't changed it in the 10 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mentioned that when we approved the rate that we are at right now for the relief. Could that be an option?
Absolutely. That was my point too, was that
Yeah.
I'd like to look at what type of revenue we were actually going to end up collecting when we look at that data, doing our projections next year. And, you're always going to get some natural growth in revenue just by
It is.
values, but I don't,
I think
I don't
I already
think any
shared
of
with
us-
the board that 819 more vehicles were in 2021 than there was in 2020.
It's a group of people out there that actually may be paying more personal property taxes than they are real estate taxes because they astronomical cost of new vehicles.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
I
but,
mean,
yeah, some people.
I'm one of those people.
it's not hard to do.
No, it's not. It really is not.
So, yeah, I think this will frame a lot of good discussions.
Yeah, I mean, it's up for the board what to decide, but if you're looking in the future to prorate, I have to reduce the amount of work in my office. And not having a license fee that needs to be supplemented and prorated and abated would be a tremendous help.
Understood.
This one has the revenue goes, is split between, as I understand, between the county and the schools.
Pardon?
The revenue, the 365 for 100, that is split, the revenue is split between schools and the county, correct?
I think it's 45 to the general fund and 55 to the schools. Yeah. So,
And is the cars, trucks, motorcycles, CPTR, why aren't RVs, campers, and other vehicles, is that state code that dictates that?
That's
or is
state
it-
code.
It's not a county
Yeah.
prerogative?
no.
Right, and then the other challenge with PPTRA is that we have to allocate it all to the schools.
Yeah.
Um, which limits our options for providing any additional relief. So,
Maybe
Yeah,
you
so-
think a 10% increase at, whatever rate, it brings in this much money, how much, at this rate, it would bring in this much money. That's, it's easy to say, well, at the total, but see, what it says in 2021 may not be what's actually collected. We've already done a number of things. So you need to look what's actually collected. So, but then, so in the middle of February, you need to know how much has been collected.
right, and that's the data that I'm after.
Yeah,
I
and
wanna
that's what
understand
you
how much we
need to
actually
be-
realize.
Yes.
In revenue growth, and then, to even take it a step further, we need to try to understand a little bit of that, how much of that is natural growth within the rates because of new vehicles coming in.
Yeah.
Versus how much of that is growth because of, balloon assessments, because of the market. And then, because you wouldn't want to, you get 10% revenue growth.
Yeah.
Not all of that revenue growth is going to be because,
Of higher assessment.
right, some of it's going to be
because-
natural growth and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
cars coming in. And so, I don't know how much data you can bring to the table this year, with not measuring it the way that you're planning to next year. But just, I don't know, we can look at historical data when assessments have been relatively level and try to understand how much of that is natural growth versus how much of that is due to the market and try to think about
And
how we
then
balance that.
when I bring the personal property tax rate, personal property tax book, I'll get how much cars are assessed, how much office appointments are, how much vans, but I don't know how many of those cars, the value of those cars qualify for the PPTRA. There's $76 million worth of trucks in the town of West Point. How many of those trucks are receive PPTRA? How many are work trucks? How many are over 10,000 pounds? I don't know. And that number I can't predict. But overall.
Right, we can just do the best we can to try to
Yeah.
understand.
All you can do is. estimate.
Obviously, this is.
Have you looked at any individual complaints and looked at, was the increase due to the value going up at all?
That's where most of the increase, or if the value stayed the same.
The family just bought a car and they're not dropping 1 cent off of the price at all.
And so they said they increased 10% in 2021. They're saying in 2022, it's going to be a 20% increase.
Well, the dealer actually told me that at auction, the cars were selling for more at the auction than he can get on his lot.
Well, I've had people, like my friend, her daughter was contacted by, Honda offering to buy back the vehicle that she bought 2 years ago for more money than she paid for. Because they don't have the inventory.
The only problem is then they want you to buy a car that's.
Yeah, that's what it
double-
was.
double stickered.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of errors on the personal property tax bills that were printed because of the admin software. One of the biggest is if you had more than 5 vehicles, say you had 8 vehicles that you had to pay personal property tax on, your bill only shows 5. Those are 3 aren't on the bill. It's just, I mean, but it's in the total, but it's not.
I got 3 bills.
What?
I got 3 bills.
3 bills?
Because
Well,
I
you
had-
might have 3 accounts and, you know, some are owned by yourself or some are owned by your wife.
It's how
They're
it's
active
divided.
at different times. There's, you know, a lot of people I've seen with multiple accounts. I don't know how that happens.
Well, sometimes it's depending whether the wife is on it or not on it, or that type
How
of
the
thing.
wife is the primary in this vehicle, and
Yeah.
you're the secondary, and another vehicle,
And it-
you're the primary, and she's the secondary, that's 2 events.
Right, my real estate works that way, so I understand. But
Yeah.
What can citizens do to help themselves, help you?
Pardon?
What can citizens do to help themselves and help you?
Well, what citizens could do is if they sell a vehicle, they can make a bill of sale with the VIN number and have it signed and dated. So we go, I don't have this car anymore, I sold it. Do you have a bill of sale? Oh, no, they just gave me cash and drove off. But I said, really? I have 2 vehicles like that too. You know, I don't know. I mean, so, and they need to report it to the DMV when they sell it. You can't, if you go to a car dealership or to CarMax and you trade in your car, they're gonna contact the DMV and change the title name. If you sell a car to your neighbor 2 doors down, and you sign over the title, he may not get around to going to the DMV and changing the registration until he's got to renew his insurance, which might be the following year. And then on January 1st of that year, you're still the owner. So,
But
it's
make
whoever
sure
the
you
car
take
is,
those
owns the
tags.
car on January 1st, they have to pay. And if you sell your car or it's totaled on January 2nd, you pay for the whole year. So prorating is a lot of work, but it is the most fair for the citizens.
A question based on some early discussions we had when you were first in. One is, we talked about new Kent's model.
Yeah.
For collecting certain data pieces, especially like high mileage cars in and out, stuff like that. They mail out, a form
Yeah.
to every household that's filled
Well,
out.
we don't mail it out. I mean,
Right.
it's on the website, or they call it and we'll send it to them. But there's another thing I discussed with Mr. Ashcraft and Mr. Hudgens. We need to have software where people can file and pay online,
Yes,
and we don't need to mail them information.
that would be,
Because
good.
postage is increasingly expensive. I mean, so there's 28,000 pieces of personal property assessed. 28,000 pieces of mail to send out? I don't know, that's a lot,
Sure.
that's a.
But I think just in the spirit of it, just having some way more convenient for people to be.
And I don't, this hasn't been done in the past, and it certainly wasn't done this time. But people come and say, I filled out a high mileage form, but it doesn't show the discount. It's coded in our system that they have high mileage. There's nothing on the bill that says they're receiving a high mileage discount. So if we could change that and say, this car has received a high mileage discount, that would save a lot of car calls.
And if they don't fill that out every year, they don't always
It
get
has
it.
to be filled out every year after January 1st.
Now,
The mileage as of January 1st.
this is something that I've never looked into before. Is that our prerogative or is that state code? That it has to be filled out every year? I don't know either. If
I don't know, but I can
You
check.
never know, but I'd like to find that out, because if it's our prerogative,
Because it's not gonna decrease.
No, I mean, if
well,
it's,
right,
Yes, but the
Once
mileage
you're on
goes up every year.
but if it qualifies this year for high knowledge, it will certainly.
from then on.
Now, if you have a 2018 car that has 45,000 miles,
right, I get you.
I could qualify, but then if next year you only drove 2,000 miles,
Yeah,
it doesn't
professional changes
qualify.
with the year.
Yeah,
Does, you mentioned you can, do they prorate? What do you know?
I mean, we could do it for any vehicle with over 200,000 miles, doesn't have to file a vehicle permit. But the mileage increases each year.
Understood.
So-
That makes,
So let me ask,
Doesn't-
I wanted to ask Travis, you mentioned the questionnaire that they mail out in UConn. Do they go solely by that questionnaire and take the citizens, at being honest, or do they back it up with information from DMV? I'm thinking they still use DMV.
I'm sure they do. I mean, I'm not like going in and sat with Laura to see her process, but I think for them, it's just another tool to collect data.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm sure she verifies. I mean,
Yeah.
she's considered a pretty good commissioner resident, has been doing it for a long time.
She's having one, she runs her own assessment department.
Yeah.
One clarification, you said if it's 200,000, over 200,000 miles this year, and you qualify, you don't qualify next year because it's,
I think I have to look at the different forms, but after a certain amount of mileage, I think it's right around 200,000, you qualify.
right, that's what you
So
said.
if you had a car that had 201,000 miles, I don't see the point of you filling out a form
Right,
every
yeah.
year for that car.
Right,
But for, until it reaches that maximum, you would need to.
Because the threshold.
Don't you
changes
still have
every
to fill that form out every year, even if it's 200,000?
Right now you do. I mean, but I'm gonna
because
check
I
the state
get
code or
complaints every year
ordinance
about
about
that.
my mileage.
that's what we were just asking.
Yeah.
Because actually, if it's 210,000 this year, it's gonna be more from then on forever. That's what she's saying. Why
Right,
fill it
I
out
think
again?
the point's well taken.
Right.
Yeah.
I can understand why it's prorated, it's just prorated before, why would you even fill it out if it doesn't match the 200,000? If it's only 45,000, why would you bother filling one out?
Well, because you can
Well,
qualify.
if you have
right.
a 2021 car with 45,000 miles, it's got high mileage. It's a certain amount of miles per the year of the vehicle.
Right, that was the explainer as to the reason that, you know, that it is filled out every year, because if you got a 2018 with, and I'm just throwing numbers out, they're gonna be wrong, so don't come back to me later.
I thought it was anything over 200.
You know, yeah, you got a 2018 with 75,000 miles on it, and then all of a sudden say, you know, COVID hit,
Yeah.
and you work for 5 days every year, well, that might not qualify.
Yeah,
So it
there's,
changed.
I mean, I don't know, it's around 200,000.
That's what I thought.
You know, we just qualify.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, according to New Kent's website, they're a non-prorated.
Thank you.
now, as far as some of these tools and functions that Ms. Funkhauser is after within the software, are these things that we can either try to get built by Edmunds or somewhere that we're working on? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
And then I thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you as always. Fire and EMS.
Evening, guys.
Even
We'll run over COVID real quick. Things are kind of on that slow roller coaster, up a little bit one week now. Next, the 511 vaccine has been approved for all children. About 1,150 kids have been vaccinated in 3 rivers. Statewide, we're about 66% vaccinated across the board for the population of the state. And the testing on the children's vaccinations are showing that about 90% have prevented the children from contracting COVID. So just a little tidbit there. The CDC website is still open.
I already got it. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the rest of it.
Yep, registering is open, and I encourage everybody to get the children vaccinated themselves as well. It's proven itself time and time again. I know it sounds like a broken record, but it's extremely important as we try to combat this disease. The county policy stays same for masking in public buildings. Our department has, been closed to the public and will remain closed until we can look towards a different direction based on, the COVID-19 and civil unrest across the country. On our front for the staffing, we offered 7 positions. One person had a change in his personal life, and he had to withdraw from the process. And about the same time, we had a person who was coming on board with us part-time, who was looking to post themselves here in King William County where they live. They wanted to come home and be local, and they were fully certified, so we were able to offer them a full-time job which will reduce our academy positions to 6, but we'll still have the 7 positions with 1 being able to be fully vetted and rolling into the field in January versus at the end of the recruit school. This person is also in a paramedic program, which will be done around June. So we'll add another medic to our arsenal to help the citizens. That still leaves us open to pre-budget season. The 6 positions that we are left owing by the SAFER grant, and we'll talk a little bit more about that once we hear back from the federal government as to how SAFER is kind of run this year, so that we can give you a more informed amount of information to approve and move forward with reapplying for SAFER to fill the rest of those 13 positions. But we don't know if they're going to fully fund or how they're going to do that this year yet. We are still working on the standard operating procedures for field operations. That's a pretty tedious task. It requires input from all organizations. So it's kind of slow. I know it's on there every week. We are working on it. It's just the vetting process takes a while. The transition to ESO is going very well. We went live today across the board. All 3 fire departments are reporting in ESO for their EMS and fire reports. The county employees were also enrolled in the ESO training platform, which provides for automatic yearly training for ISO training and EMS training required by the state. It's these programs automatically report out to the state, and the ISO training captures the training required by insurance agencies outlined for the ISO rating, and that it doesn't go anywhere, but it stays captured in a report so that we can report out if we do a study to improve our ISO rating.
Chief, by chance, is Matt coming into ESO?
Mattapanna.
Am I saying it right? Walkerton.
Oh, Walkerton, no, sir. Walkerton, they are reporting directly through the state fire records system. And they don't do EMS response for us. So anything that they tie back to EMS on King and Queen side, they go through King and Queen, and on our side, we fill out the stuff for them on our reports. But because they don't do an EMS report, we don't need to pay for another whole system for their department. Our third ambulance it's done. We discussed that last meeting. Our new ambulance, the final inspection was supposed to be last week, and it got pushed out. And it's not because the COVID crisis with the chips and all. It's just simply because they were overwhelmed and the production line got pushed back. So we're going out the second week of January to inspect that ambulance. So hopefully by the end to the middle of February, end of January, middle of February, we'll have that ambulance up and going. The engine is, as of today, still on time. We're looking at a April to mid-year inspection time, depending on how things roll out as that truck gets built. Unfortunately, you don't know things until you know them, especially as it rolls down that assembly line and it goes from framework to engine work to exhaust, and they're putting the electronics in. And well, here you run into an issue. We've already had to change all the tires that were going to originally put on the engine because they just can't buy the ones that normally would get. So we're having to make those adjustments and roll the punches as we move forward, just trying to make sure we get the same quality. We actually ended up upgrading our tires to a higher quality and getting them the same price because it's manufacturer just couldn't get what they promised us to start with. So, the workshop that we had last Friday went very well. It was a meeting with, it was hosted by BDM and a contractor that they employ with the county administrator, deputy county administrator, the upper Mattapanna, almost all the department heads, including sheriff's office, fire EMS, and several of the agencies, DSS, schools were there. And we ran through several scenarios to test the EOP and the resiliency of our plan. And we will be receiving a report back from the contractor through VDOM, giving us suggestions on what we can do to improve our plan to be more readily prepared based on our current availability of resources.
Great. Mr. Moore intended that, didn't
Yes, I'm sorry,
Was it
the
Mr.
supervisors, I apologize. Yes, Mr. Carver, Mr. Moore, we're both there. If trying to run through this, I apologize, gentlemen. Two of my 14 players.
he? No, you're good. I did
Um,
give credit where credit. is due.
Yes, sir, absolutely. I apologize, gentlemen. And we have established that the EOC is going to be at station one with the backup being in the boardroom or somewhere in this building in the general vicinity. As we build out the communications lines and things in the EOC, we're looking for double and triple backup. And for the hardware that we're going to be using and installing there, we'll be looking for things that can be mobile in the event that something happens and some of the stuff there is still usable. We can grab it and bring it up here if we need to change the location, or maybe it just makes more sense to be here depending on where the disaster is. And that's going to be in cooperation with the sheriff's office and county administration, board of supervisors, and all of our partners on the outside. And we look to do some more drills in the future to try to hone what the plan is with the EOC and EOP.
Well, stated it was an excellent session, learned a lot. I think a lot of people that have never been exposed to that environment learned a lot and encourage future opportunities as well.
I'd like to also, I really appreciate the invitation to come. Especially in the events that happen probably 12 hours later in Arkansas, Kentucky, Illinois, just to mention a few states. To be prepared for something like that is key. And that was stressed. And we have an incredible amount of talent that works here in the county. And I was impressed with everyone, all the department heads, including your group. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, First. Any other questions?
Anybody down here? Good.
Yes, so Chief Cruz, I have a question. So some of the volunteers that are still there, I mean, one of the stipulations when we bought that building was they were going to still be allowed to use it. And I've gotten lots of complaints from them that says that they've never been able to get back in to get to their office, return their phone calls. Is there a reason for that? Because that was one of our agreements that they were going to, I know they can't do any events because of COVID, but not to be able to get to their stuff or use their office.
The requests that I've had from them, they've been given the option to come and go in escorted to get anything or to get access to anything we have there.
Okay. Just saying that they
On
have
multiple occasions, I've offered to have someone meet them there, and even myself to go up and help them get things that they need out of there so that they can function. The purpose of closing the building is to protect our folks, at all costs when we
Right.
can. From
Yeah, so we couldn't do
new
that.
people. So,
Right. Okay. Sounds good. I'll get back to them and tell them they
yeah, absolutely.
it must have been misconstrued.
Yeah, well,
Well-
everybody that's asked me and requested to get in there to get stuff, I've told them how to do it and tried to make arrangements with them to get it.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, just on your first night of the sound run, you actually had an emergency report that people had to respond to and terminate the sound run, correct?
I'm sorry.
The first night of sound run, there was an emergency where your crews had to respond to that emergency.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes,
They abandoned the sound run, correct?
they didn't abandon, but they did run the call and come back.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have 4 people and you're out doing sound runs and somebody calls for help, we have to get them. So,
Right.
but we don't have the apparatus, one, and second, we don't have the staffing, just trying to put it all together, not trying to, use derogatory towards anybody, but if a citizen calls for help, that's what we're there for. So if we're out doing center runs and that happens, we have to go. And even if we had 2 or 3 vehicles out or availability to staff it, if the call calls for it, we have to go. Yeah, we did go out, we answered the call, we came back and continued the same.
Picturing Santa Claus, like. thank you for doing that. Because obviously that's not something that you have to do. And I think basically a lot of paid departments don't do it at all, right?
It's a mixed bag, but yeah, I think where historically it has occurred, people try to continue to do it. There's been lots of issues with the insurance companies refusing to cover if you do certain things. I mean, that's why some of the old school processes have changed. We don't throw candy. That's an insurance and liability issue. 50,000-pound truck, 30-pound kid. And then the Santa Claus being on the outside of the vehicle, which we did get some complaints about that. We can't have them on top because of the insurance company. They just don't cover. And if you have something going out there.
That takes away all of it.
Sir,
That takes away all of it. Not having them on top.
well, we put them inside, we line them up from the inside so that you can see very clearly. And, we try to do the best.
Well,
we
look,
can.
I think it's great that you did it, and that, to the extent that people would rather complain about something not being exactly the way that they wanted to remember it versus appreciate people trying to keep it going. I think it's unfortunate, but I thank you and commend Kruger getting out there and doing it.
Well, I appreciate it. I do want to, since we're on the subject, thank Minga Fire Department for helping us cover the Central Garage District. We worked with them diligently to plan the routes that they actually came into the northern end of our district because it's so much space, so many roads, and so many people to try to see to cover everybody. And we just didn't have enough time. We would be out there for days on end trying to cover all the Minga because they have extra people and staffing on those evenings. They come in and help us out on the northern end. So I just want to drop that out there and thank them guys for all the help that they gave us with it. But I appreciate the acknowledgement. The guys do too. I mean, it's not something that we despise doing. It's actually good for us. It's the guys like doing it. And it's good for the children. It's good for the public. So.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, as always, I say every time that you're up here, what we want to know is what you need to complete the mission. And you've given us that so far. You've told us what you needed. We try getting it to you to the extent that we can, but I appreciate your forthrightness and your honesty about exactly what you need to do, what we expect your department to be able to do.
Well, thank you, sir.
We'll keep trying to get it together.
Yeah, and I apologize. I missed something on the update for the apparatus. If we did reapply for the AFG because we didn't get it to replace the brush truck in that first response vehicle. And I think the federal government's changing the way they look at some scoring this year. They're already able to get some feedback to where we didn't get out of the electronic scoring process. It was never viewed by the panel for that vehicle because of the call volume. And they've pushed that to the back of the process now. So it'll come at the two different localities. Who has the most need at that point versus up front. King William County's call volume versus DC's call volume.
Right.
We never get grants, so they're changing that this year. All right.
All
Thank you,
right.
guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Parks and Recreation Department, Ms. Huffman.
Good. I just wanted to give you all a brief update on some of the programs, events, and projects that we've been working on. We have coming up in the Parks and Rec Department. We got to do our after-school program again this year after having to take last year off due to COVID. And it's been good to see the kids. We're back up to about 70 kids. That program's continuing to grow each week, which has been great to see. We are offering our normal 5-day-a-week option and then a part-time option as well. And we've got about 7 part-time staff for that program right now. We were able to offer our first fall soccer league this season, and we had just over 70 kids registered for that, which is really good to see. County hasn't had soccer for about 6 years, so it was great to be able to bring that back. It was about an 8-week long season. We had 6 games, and then our older age group was able to play a few games against New Kent. And then we also received a $2,000 sponsorship from Tappahannock Chevrolet again this year, which helped us to purchase new goals for the kids. And then we will also be offering spring soccer. That registration will be open in the new year, and then we will start that season in March.
Basketball is currently going on. It's been so good to see that program is picked back up right where it left off. We're well over 230 kids, which is really good, right where we normally were. And then 25 kids for our tot shots, our little guys, they haven't started up yet. The registration will end on December 22nd, and then they'll start January 15th. Our basketball program's been practicing Monday through Thursday at the 3 schools down this way. We have 3 part-time staff that are working that for us, and then they'll pick up games in January. We have had a game schedule out here at the end of this week, actually. And then we actually just had our second annual reindeer run 2 weekends ago. The sheriff's office and VDOT helped us in closing down Quentin Church Road for a couple hours. We were able to do our kids 1 mile and our 5K. We had about 60 total runners, which doubled our numbers from last year. And we were able to provide all the runners t-shirts and snacks afterwards. And then we did medals for the top 3 runners for each race. Some of our instructor-led programs we've had going on. We've got fitness classes. We got 3 fitness instructors right now. We're able to offer classes to all ranges, all age ranges. We've got yogas, Pilates, cardio, weightlifting, and all those classes are doing so great right now. It's really good to see everybody getting out and taking part in some of those things. A lot of those classes are taking place at our rec center at the park. We do have one instructor that's doing classes at the community center. We've been able to offer quite a few holiday classes. We did some kids cooking classes at the community center. We did one for Halloween, one for Thanksgiving, and then we've got a Christmas camp next week. It'll be 3 days, and it'll be half a day. The kids will get to cook breakfast, lunch, and then they'll make a snack. We also did a couple of wreath classes, and then the Key Floors came in again this year, and they did a centerpiece class for Thanksgiving, and they just did one for Christmas last week. We've also had quite a few CPR classes last couple of months, and then in the new year, we'll be offering a CPR class every other month, and then we'll do the 3 months during the summer, trying to hit a lot of those teachers that are trying to get their recertifications and stuff before the school year starts back up. Senior programs, we've got our bingo like we normally do. We're doing that at the Rubiton. They actually just finished up today. And then Wii bowling, we've got taking place at the rec center on Friday still. And then Mahjong's coming to the community center on Wednesdays, utilizing that facility. Some future programs we've been looking at doing, our department, the rec commission, and members of the community have also reached out. We see that there's a need for adult programs, specifically adult sports. So we're looking into doing some maybe adult flag football, adult dodgeball, adult kickball, soccer, and slow pitch softball. So we're kind of doing some research on those programs right now, trying to figure out what would be the best fit for the community. And then hopefully start implementing those programs within the next year or so. Some updates on the 360 complex. We've got 2 part-time staff that have been working there for us in the afternoons from 4 to 6 to keep that building open to the community. We've definitely seen public use increasing over the last couple of months, which has been really great to see. The community has been super helpful in donating things like books, ping pong tables, air hockey tables, just stuff for the community to be able to come in and utilize. We were also able to host the county employee recognition event back in November. It was really good to see a lot of the county employees get to see that building for the first time and how much it had transformed since it was the pharmacy. And we got a lot of great feedback, so that was awesome. And then we've been working with maintenance to have our parking area behind the building prepped, and then I'll go ahead and order that gravel, and they'll get that spread, so then that way for our soccer season in the spring, we'll have that parking area ready, and we won't have to park over on the fire station side. And then update on our soccer field, we just got that regraded and leveled, and we put some seed down. And then once the parking area is done, we'll get that fence up, and we'll be all ready to go for our spring soccer.
Excellent. I had said when you gave this report last year that you had a pretty aggressive slate of programs that you were looking to do. Y'all have been impressed with how y'all been able to fill those out. Did you have something?
I'm a little concerned that Chief Reeves folks might need to get more EMTs out there, adults. Adult sport.
Right, none of us are allowed.
Have all y'all guys been to the rec center?
You know, I have
It's,
not.
it's worth the stuff. It's really nice. Great job.
Thank you.
Anything? Okay. Thank you. Well, thanks a lot. We appreciate the report and, yeah, look forward to the great.
Thank you.
All right. All right, proposed water tower update, Ms. Brown.
That's Luder with me here also. We're gonna kind of do a joint brief update for y'all. We have met with the property owners, Mrs. Clemens and Ms. Taylor. And we are working with Bowman Consulting, our engineering firm, trying to pinpoint the best location for the tower on this site. So we're looking at elevations to see which one will be the best fit for the location. And Josh did talk with Bowman recently, and they will be out there Friday. And-
Yeah, they're planning on having a proposal for the surveying and the site plan to us by Friday. That was as of last Thursday.
And hopefully in January,
January, they'll be doing that, the actual survey on site, and Mr. Clemens has just asked that we stay in contact with them and let them know, and keep them on the forefront of everything that's going on.
as soon as we get a location, we'll come back to y'all.
So he has opened up a lot of this property to the counties to make it available for this tower, so I very much appreciate it and what he's doing for us.
And I think they're looking to try and keep it close to the road.
Yeah, we're looking at, right now, there's 3 sites along Manville Road, there's 1 site along 360 that's the best possible locations.
Ed, are you just professional to pose like you have a question? Let's hear you.
Yes. Is it unusual to ask for a fair market value of the property once it's determined where it's going to be? Maybe that's for Mr. Ashford. When citizens donate property, is it usual to get a value of that piece of property?
Again, I don't know how usual it is, but it certainly is capable for numerous reasons, for their benefit.
I would think if you donate it, that would mean free. If you purchase it, it would have a price attached to it. That would be my.
Well, right, I assume that Mr. Moore is asking for tax filing purposes.
The value you would get from that, right value. Sure.
This location, is that on the, off of 360, is that on the high embankment? It is.
Most kudzus.
I don't know if you remember the PowerPoint we had at maybe the meeting before last, that kind of showed it had all the vegetation up on the hill. We were kind of looking up at that spot, but there's also a couple of spots on the main hill that are elevated pretty high as well. The property runs both ways.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, yeah, look forward to more updates. Think probably work. Mr. Hudens, clerk election process, and we might need to amend that to add other positions in the election. So
Right,
we keep
lots of news.
adding. Or subtracting. It's the case
You guys
may be.
stay up there. So as you guys are all aware, Ms. Norman put in for her retirement effective February of next year. And the process that we have to go through for filling that and special election is that the board must petition the court to hold a special election. There are certain days, dates, times of the year around the election that may not be used for a special election date. But the general election in November of 23 or 22 is a possibility. And it's recommended by staff, registrars who put it on that election dates so that there isn't another election day that we have to pay to have a special election on. And if the board is agreeable to that, then we can go forward with our legal counsel trying to write paperwork to petition.
Is the office capable of operating in the interim without a head? I know
Um,
she's got capable depth, but I
think they,
don't want the court to come in March and say, what the heck are you guys doing? I need a clerk, you need to hold an election in June.
Patricia Norman is really high on Tina Bladesbrook.
I agree, I don't
know
want,
what the answer to that question.
my only concern is what the court's going. I imagine he's gonna have some influence over this.
I'll double check them. I have not heard anything.
I do,
Right, if the judge is fine and thinks that office can function, which I have no doubt it can, then I'm perfectly fine with not having to pay for another special election.
I'm gonna step out a little bit and say, I think we're good.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, why can't we do it in the primary? I mean, yeah, the primary.
Well, that would be expecting that there would be a primary, I mean, because
Usually, all of us, there's so many candidates running for every.
It's actually, it's not allowed on the date of a primary.
Oh, it is not, so you go, oh. Because when we had to do a special election.
well, because the parties pick.
I'm,
Right.
Oh, there you
And
go. That's gonna be a
Before
long
she-
time.
you really can't do anything until she truly resigns, right, or retires.
Right, we can prepare for it.
Right. And that's
If we want to
February.
do it in special election, but we can't move on.
Okay. Well, I would say then, let's just run it by the court one more time and make sure that the judge is okay with that, and if he's okay with that, then that's fine. The schools are asking a bunch of questions too about when, can they hop on board with it and have that position filled and what processes they need to do. They've got a meeting tomorrow night, so if you just update, I guess, Dr. White or their chairman about what we're planning to do so that they can figure out their process.
Sure. I questioned the registrar this morning, or her assistant, just on that, and it's similar process, except that the school board chooses.
Well, right, I think the thought from the school board was that if we were gonna hold a special and do it early, that they would want to hop on and do it early, and then they would not appoint an interim. But I think if we're gonna do November, then they're gonna have to appoint.
It was last time, we've done this before.
Well, right, I think the window, well, no, they appointed Ms. Stone and then she ran for the position. So,
Within a couple of months.
Yeah,
Right.
it's been a couple of
And
months.
the election,
Not 11 months.
it was just a couple of months.
Yeah, this is from January to.
well, the
November.
school board is gonna have to, they've got laws that they've got to follow too about having membership as well. So what I understood from my last conversation with my counterpart was that if we're not gonna be holding a special election in the spring, that they're going to be required to appoint an interim member until the special election. So they were just trying to figure out their timing. Do they need to recruit an interim? Do they need to, can they just wait and hold the election? But if they're waiting until November, they're gonna have,
The registrar is recommending this probably because of cost too, right?
I'm sure, right?
Do we have an estimate of what the last special election cost us?
I do not have that.
But they cheat.
Or was it? Yeah.
25, 30,000?
I was thinking that it was 13, 14,000. Does that sound?
I don't remember, but it's not, a couple $1,000.
Right.
It's not a significant expense.
And it's a significant amount of work as well.
Right.
The rest of them, why didn't we push it last time? Why did we have a special election now?
Well, because we had two open offices that could not function without it. Effectively, and then the school board did what they were gonna talk about doing this time, is they just hopped on board with that special election and filled the position then. But that was their only question, so we'll just, well, I'll text Kathy tonight and let her know, we'll just follow. We're looking at November or election. Get their stuff ready.
So this can't be submitted till like February anyway. The actual petition, right?
Correct. So I think it's 15 days after resignation is effective.
No later than that.
Okay,
Well, what do we need now? Just go ahead and prepare?
we're just basically doing that now. I don't even think we're looking for a motion. We're just looking for general
In
consensus.
January, we'll come back with the actual resolution
Yeah.
for that date. We're all set for it being on in November.
Okay, still up, VIPS budget.
Correct, so, the VIPSA board approved the FY '23 budget, so we're not fully in budget season yet, but I just wanted to make you aware that expectedly costs are going up. They've had to deal with a lot of their personnel, their staff costs are around minimum wage levels, so they've all had to jump already. And it's going to go do so again, as well as problems with just everyone else's prices going up and the hiring problems that everyone is facing. So I just wanted to make you aware that costs are increasing about 12.5%, $121,000. This is going up to the minimum pay scale starting about $13.80 an hour. We can get into more details. Just wanted to make you aware of that, and also bring up the costs. You asked for about adding days back in, and obviously this is a priority for the budget, but again, just want to make you aware of those costs. What I've included in this memo for the cost from last year, the director back, Mr. Magnet, was out and couldn't get back to me until today, so I have updated numbers. Option one, if we were to add 1 day back in, would cost for, let's see, the Epworth and the King William landfill sites, they'd be open 5 days a week. That would cost $21,000 on top of what we've just discussed. If we go back to 6 days a week at those sites, it would be $50,500.
60.5, 60.
50, sorry, 50.5.
Just 2 sites, correct?
Correct.
Well, that's over the course of the year, of course.
Right, and these are expensive sites anyway.
Sure.
Yes. As far as budgeting is concerned, those are the numbers that we're looking at.
Well,
Any more information you would want on that for me to get them to have for discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think if you haven't heard yet in the planning commission meeting earlier last week, expecting 125 new homes in Central Garage. I don't know what time frame that is. Is that over a year, 2 years?
We have the townhomes, that Macaulay Park LLC is proposing, that'll be 120 there. But we also have another development, proposed down right at the corner of Venture. That if that goes through, that'll be 294 lots.
So at some point, we're gonna have to focus a lot harder on our refugee situation. So if we fix it now.
right,
fix it
it's a
later.
point well taken. I don't think it's lost on anybody. I think what we need to really maybe start focusing on is, again, finding an alternate site in Central Garage. And, you know, I brought up the idea of, you know, bringing in, suppose obviously we can't do it at a countywide level, but, you know, we might want to have these conversations even with these developers about provision of refuge services to these people. I don't think we can probably, you know, I'm not thinking as broadly as thinking that we can shoehorn it into some type of proffer, but maybe if as they set up the HOA in these communities, if they can start to include that.
While we aren't allowed to ask for proffers anymore, on the other hand, they can know what we need.
True enough, yeah, my
Set up
thought-
HOAs, do their due diligence.
Right, because a lot of
Attract
them are going to be setting up HOAs anyways, and they'll be impaneling the majority of the board of these HOAs and all these other things. So I don't know, just that's a thought that I want us to continue to pursue, is how we can, especially in the new communities, it would seem to be maybe a little bit easier than the established ones, but how we can establish some type of you know, refuge service at home on a more broad level than we currently have, to try to take some pressure off these sites. But just thought, but I appreciate the information. Anybody have any questions on this? Or any other information that you would like to see as we move forward? No, you said. Okay.
Really put interest on Central Garage, like I said, that traffic is getting bad this weekend, every day was backed up on 30s. It's not a good safety.
Okay.
Yeah, I should probably know this, but I know we all contracted with them and good until 2023, somewhere along, in the year 2023.
We have to re-up our agreements. I think,
Year.
This coming
I
spring.
think it's,
Well, my question is, evidently the contract does not have a specified amount each year. They are subject to increasing it based on their costs. Is that correct? This is an increase over last year, and we're still in the contract with them.
Correct.
So what do they base the increase on? Their costs? Is that in the contract?
Their costs, they're not for profit, so everything they're doing is,
So whatever the amount is what we pay. We're not.
right, however,
well,
the county is represented on this board.
right, we've got representation on the board, but there are also options that we have exercised before, when they've asked for increases, and that's why we're sitting here talking about adding days back that we previously paid away. So again, it's a question of level of service. Basically, they provide you an estimate for what it's gonna cost them to provide you with the level of service you currently have. You can take it, leave it, add to it. But that's how their budget request and allocation works.
I just didn't understand the fact that it's a different figure from last year, but it's based totally on their costs. Is what they present to the county.
All right, we just spent the majority of this meeting talking about everybody's cost.
He also let me know in this update email about those prices today that their sister authority for Central Virginia had bid out for services, and some of the counties out there, Goochland, Powhatan, and waste management prices were going up 60 to 80% for those localities. Everybody's feeling a pinch on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Ashby, public relations update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As the previous speakers have outlined, there's a great deal of information that's circulated within this county. Most of it is very positive. And one of the administration's initiatives early on in the time that I'm here is to establish a public relations thrust that I think will get the message out in a greater way. You know, every month or twice a month, we come before you and through the venue of Zoom, we're able to generate information. But as you know, people in a county of our size spread out in 5 different districts, getting the message to individuals can be a challenge. So we're trying to upgrade, update, increase our incentives in which to reach folks. And let me just say that Ms. Branch has done a wonderful job with Facebook. And we're going to continue to do that in a greater way, maybe add more news and more announcements than maybe we've had before. But we'll continue to use that medium as a focal point, because I think we all know that Facebook is here to stay. People want to watch it, and I think that's an advantage to the county if we use it constructively, use it the right way. One of the new things that we've already put into place is Twitter. I don't know how many of you have a Twitter account. It's a medium that's used by a younger generation. However, the following of Twitter is immense. And again, it's another way that people who live in the county or even outside of the county want to know a little bit more about what's going on within our borders. What we post on Facebook, we can go ahead and post it on Twitter, and you're getting another audience as a result of that. So that is in place. I like to write. I'm a journalist by heart, and I enjoy writing a blog. and I tend to do that on a regular basis. I'll probably have another one coming out tomorrow. A little bit more information from what Chief Reeves presented on the EOP workshop. But it's also an opportunity to cover other topics, and you can do it as often as time allows. So we want to continue to do that. And then on Friday, we're going to launch our first newsletter. It will be sent to anyone who has an email address that would like to subscribe to it. Absolutely free. We want to send it out every Friday. There'll be an update of the calendar of events, of things that are going on in the county, whether they be meetings or special events that are happening. It'll touch on announcements that the county will be making as a summary from the previous week. I think folks will look forward to that, getting that in their email boxes every Friday once they give them their addresses. And also, it's a good way for us to have intercommunication with our own employees. It'll go to their box rather than just coming to work, going home. They'll understand that there's a great deal of information that's being generated out of this government that they probably need to use. We want to reach out to groups and be a speakers bureau to some extent. If folks want us to come and talk on particular topics, we'll do that. And because we have talent in within our midst of department heads that can certainly handle themselves in front of an audience and be respectful, but at the same time, just send a message of what our government is working on. So as the time unfolds here in the short term, I think you'll see almost immediately that public relations is going to have a greater presence maybe than it had previously. Are there any questions?
No questions. I'm looking forward to it. I like seeing the blog go out the other day. Obviously, any more avenues that we can to reach people. So I hope support.
I guess I do have one. On the newsletter, are you automatically going to put the board members' emails on there right off the get-go?
That's your choice. It wouldn't typically be there because obviously folks can go to the website, I believe, if they want to get your emails.
No. I meant for us to get that news.
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely. Your constituents. Your
Our emails,
constituents, I'm sorry.
our emails already out.
I was going to say, I thought you meant whether you wanted your email
No.
on the, no, you would, as you have already, you're getting numerous correspondences from county admin, and I think that's important that you continue to be updated on just about everything we're doing.
So speaking of announcements and public relations, we've got a pretty big announcement that we could probably make right now, can't we?
Well, we'll let Mr. Moran, who happened to attend that event, if he wanted to do that, I think it certainly would be
Absolutely.
in order.
I was invited last week by the folks at the Commonwealth Connect office working internet broadband with VHCD on the Virginia Telecommunications Initiative program that we submitted a grant request in conjunction with All Points Broadband back in June, July, I believe. And I mentioned last meeting that we were waiting an announcement. Well, in the presence of Governor Northam, Senators Warner and Kane, and Representative Spanberger and Goochland Station 6, the awards were announced today. King William is the winner of our grant. Don't have a lot of details quite yet, but to remind you, let me get the our contribution is right around 14% of the total value. The rest will come from the state through body, and then the company, All Points Broadband, will leverage the 12.3 million to build out approximately 2,236 unserved locations in King William County. I can't be more happy and pleased. Years culminating and today, with the help of Mr. Hudgens and some others, Mr. Moskowski on the former Quick Committee that did a lot of the work. So I'm looking forward to seeing some fiber strung all over the county. And this is fiber to the home. This is not wireless, fiber to the home.
So, yes, that's a big deal. Ed sent the email out earlier today with the announcement. I jumped out of my seat, because that is a big deal. All right, board requests. Anything you want to see us take up in a future work session or meeting? I'll start with you, Mr. Hodges.
I really don't have any requests. I do wanted to make a statement dealing with something that happened, and it's really in my neighborhood, but it was right significant. Coming home this afternoon, they're replacing railroad ties on the railroad track going to the mill. They had placed signs that said effective in the morning at 12/14/21 that they would be closing that railroad crossing for 2 days. There's no other entrance to that subdivision at all. After the town manager, the chief of police, and myself complained dramatically to the railroad, those signs are no longer up. So, as of right now, we don't have to worry about it being closed for 2 days. Now, I'm sure there's gonna have to be some closures in the near future, but that part, and it didn't say anything about hours, it just said for 2 days. But that's about all I have.
When they do come back and do it, you can't stay with me.
Uh,
I said, when they do come back and do it, you can't stay with me.
I'll just park in the driveway.
Mr. Green.
I don't know, anything come up, like I said, unless we look at the things about the BPSA. So normal stuff, worried about taxes, if we can do something about that, personal property tax. I don't know, I've got a lot of complaints about that too. We can't equalize that, like I said, maybe that's something we want to look at. Right.
We can,
Right.
that's what we want to talk about going into next year. We can't do it now.
Right.
But we can do it.
Maybe next year, keeping the budget, like I said, going along with you and not raising it. Paying for what we need.
Mr. Moore.
No, nothing really. Mr. Ashcraft did promise us he was gonna blow our mailboxes up, and he's done a fantastic job of that. Thank you for keeping us in the loop.
Well, just to touch on the personal property thing, I think all of us have heard people complaining about it, and all y'all guys know that I was been trying to at least have a conversation about prorating personal property taxes. It might not be the thing to do, but I'm looking forward to the numbers. And maybe adjusting the rate, because it doesn't look like the cost of vehicles will be going down anytime soon. And I know this, I probably shouldn't say this because this is just things we would like to work on, but I'd like to tell Gene Campbell, I really appreciate him coming by here tonight and taking the pictures of the board. And I'm glad I didn't break the camera, as everybody thought I was. And Merry Christmas to everybody. I don't think we will see you guys until after Christmas. So everybody be safe and happy.
Thanks for not stepping on the one you knew I was going on.
I was, but you deserve it.
Thanks. So yeah, I'd like to do something in probably not the January work session, but January regular meeting with the football team. I can't remember everything that we had a bit of a whirlwind back in 2000 where we were they were freshmen, we were on the news, but I know we came to the board meeting and at least a resolution, something to recognize the kids and get them out. And so I don't have anything particular in mind necessarily. We can develop it as we go forward, but I'd like to maybe get the invitation out there to the team that we'd like them to have them at that meeting, and we can take it away to honor those young men for the accomplishment that they had this week. So that would be my big thing coming forward. All right. Anything else? If not, got a motion for closed
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to convene closed meeting in accordance with section 2.2-3711A1 of Code of Virginia to consider a personnel matter involving the assignment of a specific public employee.
Motion,
Second.
seconded, discussion. Ms. French.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Moran,
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Chairman Miskowski.
Aye. Closed, we'll be back in just a minute. Good, welcome back. If I can get a motion to reconvene in open session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. French.
Mr. Moran,
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Chairman Miskowski.
Aye. Can we get a
Mr.
motion
Chairman,
to
I make
approve?
a motion, we accept SR one.
Very good.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. French.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Moran,
Aye.
Chairman Miskowski.
Aye.
Chairman, I make a motion to close the meeting.
Adjourn is the word.
Right.
I heard a second somewhere in there. Ms. French.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Moran,
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Chairman Miskowski.
Aye. You're adjourned. I will see all y'all next month.